You're listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
I saw two voices talking to each other. Well, hey there. Welcome back. If you're listening to these in order and you're hearing this for the first time, you know that you've just listened to the podcast on clutter and decluttering. If that interests you and you haven't heard it, please go back and listen to that one at some point. The second part of that is coming soon. I initially was going to put that second part out as this podcast, but I wanted to give enough people the chance to listen to that podcast before we went to the second step and the solution. I wanted to talk to you today about how your brain tricks you, and there are countless examples of how one part of your brain tricks another part of your brain, the unconscious, the conscious, and all that other stuff. And I know you're thinking, Mark, look, I'm just trying to have breakfast here. I'm just trying to get through my day. I don't want to have to deal with the wrestling parts of my brain. But that's what I'm trying to help you with, is when parts of your brain are wrestling with you or tricking you. If you have purchased Three Voices, the book, the experimental psychology book that I put out recently, you understand that there are three voices. We have our first voice, our second, and our third. I'm using the third to communicate with you. But what I want to tell you today is the absolutely amazing experience I had in literally watching the first, second, and third voice interact and wrestle with each other. And though it was very pleasurable for me to see this sort of thing, it wasn't pleasurable for the person I was watching and actually interacting with. So let me set the stage for you. Person A, the person that I was watching and interacting with, had an interaction with person B. Person B came and sort of tormented person A because they're having an interaction, a feud, a legal battle sort of thing. They're having a difference of opinion, let's put that mildly, right? And person B came to sort of interact and sort of almost goad person A into a reaction. Person A didn't accept the challenge because he was a smart guy. And what I saw unfold was his second voice tormenting him for the next hour or so. And as a refresher, and again, go get Three Voices so you can understand deeply what I'm talking about. His second voice essentially is what you would probably call your inner dialogue, your inner monologue, the literal voices in your head. Sometimes you hear your father telling you that you did something wrong from 30 years ago or what have you. That's your second voice. It has a very specific purpose. It has a great purpose, but sometimes it gets abused, sometimes it gets misused, and sometimes it sort of just chatters on its own and we let it. In fact, we do more than letting it. And so here was his interaction. You could tell his second voice was challenging him over and over again, replaying the event that had happened over and over again, which sounds really crappy, doesn't it? And that's exactly what it was for him. You could see it on his face. I could see in his eyes that it was replaying over and over again. And again, as I mentioned in the book, you may see this in a person and go, hello, I was talking to you. Where did you go? Where are you? And where they are is they're listening deeply to this voice in their head tell them something. I want to make it clear that what I'm talking about is not a crazy thing. It's the way that our brains work. It's a function of our brain. The second voice is a very important thing. It's what allows us to process information and emotions, that really powerful thing that we dismiss. Oh, I just feel bad. I just feel this. See, feeling bad about something is a whole programmatic thing. Okay. It's a whole program running in your brain. Feeling good about something is the same thing. It's not just you flip a switch or something like that. There are a lot of things that were laid out by you, by your personality, by nature, nurture, and your upbringing. All that stuff comes to interact to make you feel. And we just slap a label on feel when we could also call it a very complex program. So back to this poor man. So I could see in his eyes that his second voice was replaying the situation, because the second voice is a sounding board. It's a stage. It's that thing that when we're in the shower, we hear our husband or wife's voices saying that thing that really bothered us, that shouldn't have bothered us. Or maybe they shouldn't have said. And the reason they said it wasn't, their own programming is a bit off on this, that, or the other thing. The way it's supposed to work is that we take the situation, we replay it in our private little secret room, and then we dissect it, and we can do whatever we want with it. Doesn't that sound healthy and cool and powerful? Does it also sound like what never happens? Because what never happens is that what almost always happens is that it just keeps being replayed and replayed and replayed. And why would they do that? Why would they say that? Oh my God. So, well, I didn't act. And of course, you're looking at a snapshot in time. You can't go back in time and do that. But as many comedians point out, we have our best responses in the shower to something that happened to us a week ago, right? So I could see that. His second voice was doing that. And then he proceeded to speak out loud about something in his past that was similar to it and how he acted. He physically acted on something in the past to make sure someone hadn't taken advantage of him. And what he was doing was he was voicing with his third voice sort of a difference of opinion of his second voice. His second voice is challenging him, saying, you didn't act. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you punch the guy? And it was a very good reason, obviously, why I didn't punch the guy, right? But he was being goaded by his second voice, a part of his brain, to get his third voice, another part of his brain, to respond. And all the while, his first voice is just humming along and going, things are looking pretty good here. You know what? I'm not cold. I'm not warm. I'm just right. Am I hungry? No, we're not hungry. We're good. Yeah, things are doing good here. Because your first voice is just honest. It just tells it like it is. And it's just sitting there humming along while the second and the third voice are having this big confrontation, this big challenge. And so what I want to say to you is that I'm sure this has happened to you before too. But what I want to give you is a little hint of a way to deal with this. I want to show you how your second voice can trigger your third voice into acting, and how you, because you have infinite control over your third voice, you have infinite control over your third voice, but not your second voice, because, we're humans, you can actually prevent this. It's hard, but you can. So let me give you an example, sort of like what happened to him. If you're standing in your kitchen, in your bedroom, somewhere in your car, and all of a sudden you complete the second side of a conversation. And of course, mostly you're going to be alone, and maybe that's what separates people who have it together and not so much have it together, is that they don't tend to complete these conversations out loud while they're in the presence of other living people. But we do it all the time and still consider ourselves to be sane as long as we're alone. So if you're on the toilet, in the shower, you're in your car, what have you, walking to your car, it's getting a little weird because people could see you talking. If suddenly you blurt out, well, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Of course, I'd never do that, and you have this great response to something. That's your second voice goading you into using your third voice to communicate. So I'll say it in terms that you might be familiar with. That's the voice in your head telling you to talk and say something. That's the trigger. Boom. Now you figured it out. Okay? So when that happens, I want you to recognize it. Recognize that you just fell into the trap, that your second voice won. Okay? Now, as I discuss in the book, the only voice of the two second and third voices that can truly win is the third, because you have complete control over what you say. Okay. Now, granted, I'm not talking about like getting into a heated argument with someone and being backed into a corner and saying things and stuff like that. Obviously, we can't have completely measured tones at all times. I wish some people would underline, but I'm talking about when your second voice challenges your third voice to say something. So now you know what the trigger is. So if you're standing in your kitchen and you just go da 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 da, and you go, okay. I want you to feel that was a mistake. I want you to feel like, oh, oops. Because what you should do then is go, oh, what is the second voice trying to say to me? Just like this gentleman. It was replaying the thing over and over again. And he knew darn well that he had done absolutely the right thing. That he didn't need to prove himself, that he didn't need to prove that he did anything wrong. The people standing around him and being with him, including myself, all knew that he did absolutely the right thing. He did the thing that took the most amount of effort. So if you are goaded by your second voice into responding, I want you to understand when you did it, then I want you to either recognize it going forward and go, okay, that's fine, whatever, and keep your mouth shut because the second voice doesn't get to win. But if you need to have some sort of third voice discussion in your kitchen and echo off the walls or wherever you are, by all means you can do that as long as you're taking a breath and you're having a healthy monologue discussion with yourself. And there's a difference between doing that and having a little voice in your head tell you you're no good or you're bad or you did this or that or hey, let me replay a failure, or let me do this, or let me replay something really nasty somebody said to you so you can then shout in your kitchen. That's really the point of sanity right there, isn't it? That's the point of control. That's the point of sanity. By all means, go right ahead and get out your druthers, get out your anger, get out your what have you, right? But do it with you in the driver's seat. So if you're challenged by your second voice, by all means, go on a 20-minute tirade monologue in your bathroom and know that you won. And say, now, shut up. I did the right thing. Shut up. I'm not going to talk about this again. And if your second voice brings it up again, and there's nothing constructive, and there's nothing new in it, and you don't say anything, and you go have a piece of pie. And the third voice gets to do whatever it wants, and the first voice is humming around going, you know what, I think we're done here in the bathroom. I think it's time to wash our hands. And the second voice can just go pound sand. Okay, if you want to know more about first, second, and third voices and the whole three voices system of how you should look at your brain, feel free to go grab a copy of Three Voices. You can pick it up wherever books are sold. It's endorsed by a clinical psychologist, and it's only $9.99. And it has some fun worksheets in the back that can help you with the kind of things I just talked to you about. So thank you so much. Thanks for letting me go over by a couple minutes, and I will talk to you next week. Hey there, thanks for listening. You know I always appreciate your feedback. Please keep it coming. Three Voices is out. It's a fun read at only $9.99 US on Amazon. And as of this recording, it reached number 3 in experimental psychology. So thank you so much.